The wind howled across the fractured ice sheets, carrying whispers of a dying world. Jay Park stood motionless, his weathered environmental suit blending with the stark white landscape of the Arctic recovery zone. His eyes, dark and intense, scanned the horizon where broken glaciers told stories of humanity's greatest failure. 30 years had passed since the global climate collapse. Earth was no longer the blue planet of historical records, but a broken mosaic of survival zones and abandoned territories. Jay was part of the last generation of environmental engineers, tasked with the impossible mission of rebuilding what humanity had destroyed. His current assignment was simple, yet critical: establish a sustainable water collection and purification station in one of the most challenging environments on the planet. Most would have called the mission hopeless, but Jay saw opportunity where others saw only destruction. The portable drone beside him hummed softly, its advanced sensors mapping the intricate ice structures. Suddenly, its frequency changed, a subtle shift that would have gone unnoticed by anyone else. Jay's hand moved instinctively to the communication device on his wrist. Something was watching. At first, he thought it might be another recovery team. But the silence was too perfect, the atmosphere too still. The drone's sensors were picking up energy signatures that didn't match any known human technology. Microscopic distortions in the air suggested something beyond traditional visibility. Alien reconnaissance. Jay had heard stories, rumors whispered among the surviving scientific communities. Reports of strange observations, unexplained technological interruptions. But this was different. This was real. He remained perfectly calm, a skill honed by years of surviving in Earth's most unforgiving environments. His mind raced through potential scenarios, calculating responses with mathematical precision. The alien observers were studying him, testing his reactions. The ice beneath his feet seemed to shift, almost imperceptibly. Jay's training kicked in. He understood that survival wasn't about brute force, but adaptation. Humans had survived global catastrophes, environmental collapses, and near-total extinction. Each challenge had made them stronger, more resilient. A momentary shimmer in the air revealed a glimpse of something technological. A scanning device, perhaps. But it was gone before Jay could fully comprehend its design. The alien technology was advanced, almost invisible to conventional detection methods. His drone suddenly displayed a series of complex mathematical equations, patterns that seemed to dance across its holographic interface. They weren't random. They were a test, a communication attempt designed to evaluate human cognitive capabilities. Jay smiled. Humans might be broken, but they were far from defeated. With calculated movements, he began inputting responses into the drone's system. Each equation he solved was matched with increasing complexity. The alien observers were watching, analyzing every single response. Hours passed. The Arctic landscape remained unchanged, but something fundamental had shifted. Jay wasn't just collecting water or mapping environmental damage. He was representing humanity in a test he didn't fully understand. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the ice, Jay realized he was part of something larger. The alien observers weren't just studying him. They were assessing the potential of an entire species. His communication device crackled. A message, fragmented and strange, appeared briefly. Potential confirmed. Further observation required. And then, silence. Jay Park continued his work, unaware that his simple actions in a forgotten corner of a dying planet had just changed humanity's future forever. The ice beneath his feet, the drone beside him, the very air around him. Everything had become a witness to a moment that would be remembered as the first true step of humanity's cosmic journey. In the vast, cold silence of the Arctic, a species was being judged, and humanity, represented by one determined engineer, was passing the test. The wind continued to blow, carrying with it the promise of something extraordinary. 6 months after the Arctic incident, the world had changed. Global governments, long divided, now worked together with an urgency that felt both desperate and hopeful. Jay Park found himself in a secure research facility deep beneath the mountains of Switzerland, surrounded by the most brilliant minds from every corner of the planet. The room was silent, charged with an electricity that had nothing to do with technology. Representatives from military, scientific, and diplomatic circles watched as Jay presented his findings. His drone's recorded data suggested something extraordinary. Humanity was being observed, evaluated by an intelligence far beyond current. Understanding Colonel Elena Rodriguez, a veteran of multiple international crisis teams, leaned forward. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, never left Jay's face. "Explain it again," she demanded, her voice a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Jay remained calm. He understood the weight of his words. The holographic display flickered to life, showing complex mathematical sequences, energy signatures that defied current scientific knowledge. "They're testing us," he said simply, not as a threat but as an assessment. The room held its breath. Suddenly, the facility's advanced communication systems began to pulse. Screens flickered with patterns that looked like mathematical equations, but moved with an alien fluidity. It was happening again, the same communication method from the Arctic. Dr. Kai Williams, the lead quantum physicist, rushed to the nearest computer. His fingers flew across the keyboard, attempting to decode the incoming transmission. "This is unprecedented," he muttered. "The computational complexity is impossible." A countdown appeared on the main screen, not in human numbers, but in a language of symbols that seemed to breathe and change. 12 hours. That's how long they had to respond. The Global Task Force realized this was no ordinary first contact. This was a test. Military strategists wanted to prepare defensive measures. Scientists wanted to study the communication. Diplomats argued about potential responses. But Jay knew something they didn't. This wasn't about war or diplomacy. This was about proving humanity's worth. He stepped forward, surprising everyone in the room. "We need to respond mathematically," Jay explained. "Not with weapons. Not with diplomacy, but with pure problem-solving." Colonel Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. "Explain." Jay began to map out a series of complex problem-solving scenarios. Each one was designed to demonstrate human creativity, adaptability, and intelligence. It wasn't about having the right answer, but about the process of finding solutions. Fight. Countdown continued. 8 hours remaining. Around the world, the best human minds were brought together. Mathematicians, physicists, engineers, and problem-solvers from every background began working on the mysterious challenge. It wasn't a test of individual brilliance, but of collective human potential. As the final hours approached, something remarkable happened. The alien communication became more responsive, almost interactive. It was learning from human approaches, adapting its own communication based on their solutions. Dr. Hana Kim, a quantum computing expert, realized the truth first. "They're not just testing us," she whispered. "They're learning from us." The final moments arrived. The countdown reached 0. For a brief, terrifying moment, everything went silent. Then a single message appeared across every screen in the facility. "Potential confirmed. First stage assessment complete." Jay Park looked around the room. Brilliant minds from around the world stared back, united by a single moment of collective achievement. They had done something unprecedented. They had communicated with an alien intelligence without firing a single weapon, without sending a single diplomatic message. They had proven humanity's worth through pure problem-solving and creativity. Outside the facility, the world continued its daily rhythm. Most humans knew nothing of this extraordinary moment. But everything had changed. Humanity had just passed its first cosmic test, and the universe was watching. The research facility looked different now. What was once a secure military complex had transformed into a global hub of technological innovation. Jay Park walked through corridors filled with holographic displays, each one showing fragments of technology that seemed to blur the line between human innovation and alien design. 3 years had passed since the first contact. The world had changed more in those 3 years than in the previous 3 decades. Humanity's approach to technological development had completely transformed. Dr. Hana Kim stood before a massive quantum computing array, her hands moving through holographic interfaces with practiced ease. "We're not just copying alien technology," she explained to Jay. "We're understanding it, reimagining it." The breakthrough came unexpectedly. During a routine analysis of the alien communication patterns, the research team discovered something remarkable. The mathematical sequences they had been studying were more than just a communication method. They were a form of distributed intelligence. Jay watched as a small device on the table began to reshape itself. It wasn't a machine changing shape. It was adapting, learning, responding to the environment around it with an intelligence that seemed almost alive. "Quantum consciousness," Dr. Kim whispered. "It's not just a technology. It's a way of thinking." The global scientific community was buzzing. Patents were filed almost daily. Technologies that seemed like science fiction just months ago were becoming reality. Sustainable energy systems that could power entire cities. Medical technologies that could repair human cells at the molecular level. Transportation systems that could adapt to any environment. But it wasn't just about technology. It was about how humans were learning to think differently. Colonel Elena Rodriguez entered the room, her military background now transformed into a role of technological coordination. "The alien communication patterns," she said. "They're teaching us something fundamental about problem solving." Jay understood. Humans were no longer approaching challenges linearly. They were learning to think in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The alien test had done more than evaluate humanity. It had fundamentally changed how humans processed information. In laboratories around the world, researchers were discovering something extraordinary. Human brains, when exposed to these new learning methods, were showing unprecedented levels of neuroplasticity. People could learn complex skills in days that would have taken years before. A small demonstration device on the table began to change color. But it wasn't just changing color. It was processing information, adapting to the room's temperature, light, and even the emotional state of the people around it. "It's alive," Jay muttered, more to himself than anyone else. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just technological advancement. This was a fundamental reimagining of what technology could be. Machines that could think, systems that could learn, technologies that could adapt. Dr. Kai Williams entered the room, holding a small device that looked like nothing more than a simple metallic cube. "Watch this," he said, placing the cube on the table. The cube began to move, not mechanically, but with a sense of purpose. It scanned the room, analyzed the environment, and then began to reconfigure itself. In moments, it had transformed from a simple cube into a complex network of interconnected components. "It's learning," Dr. Williams explained. "Not just following programmed instructions, actually learning." Jay watched the demonstration with a mixture of wonder and understanding. This was humanity's true potential, not in conquering or destroying, but in understanding, adapting, and growing. The alien test had been more than a simple evaluation. It had been an invitation to join a larger conversation of intelligence that spanned the universe. Night fell outside the research facility. The technologies continued to pulse and adapt. Quantum systems interacted with biological systems. Machines learned like living organisms. The line between technology and life was becoming beautifully, impossibly blurred. Humanity had been given a test, and they were passing with colors beyond imagination. Massive energy signatures erupted across Earth's orbital defense systems. Jay Park watched from the primary command center as strange crystalline ships materialized in the upper atmosphere, their designs defying every known principle of space travel. The Galactic Confederation had made its decision. Humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to exist. Alarms screamed across multiple communication channels. Colonel Elena Rodriguez's voice cut through the chaos, calm and precise. "All strategic units, prepare defensive positions. This is not a drill." Thousands of alien vessels descended, their weapon systems unlike anything humans had encountered before. Energy pulses that could dissolve matter, quantum disruption fields that could tear apart molecular structures. Traditional human weapons would be useless, but humanity had been preparing, quietly, strategically. The quantum adaptive technologies developed in the research facilities were about to be tested in real combat. Defensive satellites began to reshape themselves, absorbing alien weapon signatures and developing instant countermeasures. It wasn't just technology fighting, it was learning, adapting in real time. Jay's hands moved across holographic interfaces, coordinating global defense strategies. Each alien attack was met not with brute force but with intelligent redirection. Where alien ships expected resistance, they found fluid, changing defense systems that anticipated their every move. Dr. Kai Williams watched from a secondary command center. "They're computational," he explained to the team. "They expect predictable responses were anything but predictable." The first wave of alien attacks lasted 12 hours. By the end, over 60% of their invasion fleet had been neutralized. Not destroyed, but strategically disabled by technologies that learned and adapted faster than the aliens could comprehend. Humanity wasn't fighting. They were solving a complex living problem. Orbital platforms transformed into complex defensive networks. Satellites communicated with each other like living organisms, sharing information, adapting strategies in milliseconds. The aliens had expected a straightforward military confrontation. Instead, they found a living, thinking defense system. "They're studying us," Jay muttered, watching the battle unfold. "Just like we studied them." The second wave came 3 days later, larger, more aggressive. The Galactic Confederation was sending its most advanced combat units, massive ships that could destroy entire planetary ecosystems with single energy pulses. But humanity had been preparing. Not just with technology, but with understanding. Dr. Hana Kim's quantum communication systems began intercepting alien strategic communications. Not by breaking their codes, but by understanding their computational language. They were reading the aliens' intentions before the aliens themselves knew their next move. Colonel Rodriguez coordinated global response teams. Military units from countries that had once been enemies now worked with perfect synchronization. The alien invasion had done what decades of diplomacy could not: unite humanity completely. Jay watched as human defensive systems did something extraordinary. They weren't just blocking alien attacks. They were learning from them. Each weapon signature was analyzed, understood, and then neutralized through intelligent redirection. The battle wasn't about destruction. It was about problem solving. Alien commanders became increasingly frustrated. Their most advanced computational systems were being outmaneuvered by a species they had considered primitive. Humanity wasn't fighting with superior technology. They were fighting with superior thinking. Days turned into weeks. The conflict expanded beyond Earth's orbital zone. Human adaptive technologies began to push back, not just defending, but strategically advancing. They were learning the aliens' own technological language and using it against them. In the command center, a strange quiet descended. This wasn't a war. This was a conversation, a complex, universe-spanning dialogue of intelligence. Jay Park looked at the holographic displays. Alien fleet movements, quantum energy signatures, adaptive defense networks. Humanity was no longer just surviving. They were demonstrating their true potential. The Galactic Confederation had made a mistake. They hadn't just underestimated humanity's technology. They had underestimated humanity's ability to learn. And in the cold, vast darkness of space, a new chapter of cosmic understanding was being written. The ancient archive materialized like a living memory, its quantum structures pulsing with millennia of forgotten history. Jay Park stood alone in a chamber deep beneath the recovered alien research facility, his hands touching holographic interfaces that seemed to breathe with forgotten knowledge. Something profound was happening. Humanity was about to understand its true origin. The holographic displays began to reveal a story more complex than anyone had imagined. Humans weren't just survivors. They were descendants of an ancient civilization that had seeded multiple galaxies with adaptive intelligence. A civilization that had disappeared millions of years ago, leaving behind only genetic markers and potential. Dr. Hana Kim's voice broke the silence. "These aren't just records," she whispered. "These are genetic blueprints. We're not just a species. We're a reset mechanism for galactic evolution." The revelation changed everything. The Galactic Confederation's attempt to destroy humanity suddenly made sense. They had recognized what humans were becoming, not just another species, but a fundamental force of cosmic adaptation. The wars, the struggles, the environmental challenges, all of it had been a complex testing ground. Humanity was a seed, waiting to grow. Jay watched as the archive revealed generations of strategic planning, genetic lines carefully maintained, technological potential hidden within human DNA. Survival wasn't an accident, it was a design. Colonel Elena Rodriguez entered the chamber, her military background now feeling insignificant compared to the cosmic revelation. "We're not just fighting for survival," she realized. "We're completing a mission started millions of years ago." The quantum communication systems began to pulse, but this time they weren't receiving a message, they were remembering. Memories flooded through the facility. Not personal memories, but genetic memories, glimpses of ancient civilizations, technologies that could reshape entire planets. An understanding of universal consciousness that went beyond simple biological existence. Humanity had been a sleeping potential, and now it was awakening. The scientific teams working around the world began to experience simultaneous revelations. Research facilities reported breakthrough after breakthrough, medical technologies that could regenerate entire organ systems, energy systems that could power entire continents with a single molecular interaction. But it wasn't about technology. It was about purpose. Jay understood now why the aliens had tested them, why they had pushed humanity to its absolute limits. They weren't trying to destroy a species. They were waiting to see if the species would remember its true potential. The archive continued to reveal its secrets. Humanity was a distributed intelligence system, not just a single species, but a cosmic problem-solving mechanism designed to emerge when galactic systems became stagnant. A living, thinking reset button for universal evolution. Dr. Kai Williams began calculating the implications. "We're not just a species," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "We're a living technology, a biological algorithm designed to solve complex universal challenges." The Galactic Confederation's attacks had been the final test, and humanity had passed perfectly. As days turned into weeks, human potential began to manifest in ways no one could have predicted. People began to show extraordinary capabilities, problem-solving skills that defied previous understanding, a collective intelligence that worked beyond individual limitations. Jay Park looked out across the research facility. The world was changing. Not through conflict, but through understanding. Humanity wasn't just surviving, it was remembering its true purpose. The archive's final message was simple, yet profound. Awaken, adapt, evolve. And in that moment, humanity understood its place in the universe. Not as a single species on a small planet, but as a living, thinking mechanism of cosmic renewal.